from the perspective of interviews. So first I need to understand what are the most important. So the first thing is, what is SOAP or what is WSDL? What is a WSDL? Web Services Description Language. WSDL is an XML format for describing network services which is used for messaging. So what is WSDL? WSDL is nothing but Web Services Description Language, which is combined of SOAP. SOAP is a protocol, and XML, which is a messaging system. What is SOAP? SOAP is Simple Object Access Protocol. What is XML? Extensible Markup Language. Features of SOAP. SOAP can transfer or transport over HTTP also. What is WSDL? WSDL is something which is used for describing the service, list of operations, the binding informations, binding info, and messages, which is in terms of XML. What is UDDI? Universal Description, Discovery, and Integration. UDDI is nothing but XML based standard for describing, publishing, and finding a web services. UDDI stands for Universal Description, Discovery, and Integration. UDDI is a specification for distributed registry of web services. This is also platform independent and open framework. So UDDI provides a mechanism for clients to dynamically find other web services. Okay. So using the help of UDDI only, you are able to identify a web service. So these are the most important things. So what is the use of UDDI? It helps to find web services. So these are the important perspective from the perspective of this particular session. So what are the things we discussed? What are web services? Web services are nothing but, instead of our default monolithic architecture where we create methods and we interact, which is like a tightly coupled systems. Instead of that, if we want a distributed environment, means web services are the only option. How the web service is used in that? They are used for communication, which is nothing but they use as a XML messaging system, where XML as a default standard for that with the help of tags. So when they are using the XML, that becomes common across all the different languages and different platforms. So there will not be no more specific to any particular language or particular platform. They can be accessed by anyone. So and discover, it is also, the web services are also able to be located, discovered by anyone. So who is able to help with the discovery means UDDI. So where the practical web services are used in general, all the things, if you see the ticket bookings or even nowadays banking, but I am not I will not say they are using SOAP. There are differences there. There are REST used, but they are also kind of web services only. So those kind of things are used. What is a WSDL? WSDL is nothing but Web Services Description Language, which is an XML based protocol for you exchanging the messaging or exchanging the informations between distributed environments. So they are nothing but they have the web services description along with the SOAP binding and along with the XML messages. So WSDL is often used in combination with the SOAP and XML schema to provide web services over the internet. What is a SOAP? SOAP is a protocol, first of all. SOAP refers to communication protocol, which is designed to communicate through the internet. SOAP can extend HTTP also, which means they can transport over the HTTP and HTTPS protocol also. SOAP provides data transport for web services. What is that? Exchange of data. They can be using the remote call procedure, which is RPC. SOAP can be also used for broadcasting messages, which is to give the or show the outputs. SOAP is nothing but a XML way of defining what is the information sent and how it is defined. So the help of SOAP only we are able to communicate with the WSDLs. So these are the important things which we discussed on this session. So the next session is where we are going to install the SOAP UI and we see how we can interact with the SOAP services and what is the part of a QA in that. Those are the things we are going to discuss. Okay, so these are the important points which you may require to go through from the perspective of interview. So you can have a look over this. So till this, you can go on. What is a SOA? It is nothing but service oriented architecture. Who are involved in service architecture? Service oriented architecture, service provider, one who provides tools available for testing. SOAP UI. SOAP UI can be used for manual testing as well as for automated testing. So these are the most important things to know about service oriented architecture. Here, what are the things we need to know? What is a request and response? Request, which is nothing but an input XML, which is sent to server for getting some info. Response and output, which is with the same format of XML sent by the server as a reply to your request. So in that, what are the things you are going to validate? Status code. What is the status code? To know the status of the response. So 200 refers to success. 201 refers to created. 400 refers to bad request. So like that, multiple things are there. Status line, which is nothing but which shows the status of the response as text. For example, okay, created, bad request. So this 200, 201 are considered to be response code. The status line is this one. And then what is the other thing you may need to check? You may need to check the content type. So if the request is sent as an XML means the content type should be also XML. Okay. And then you want to see the structure of the message. It should not have SOAP fault. That is, in a simple way, you can say well-formed XML should be given. So for both input and output. So if you are providing a well-formed XML as an input, then only an output will be generated properly. So those things will be verified. So why we are verifying these things means these are the things which will make sure that the response I am retrieving is proper or not. Okay. So these are the things which is from the perspective of here. And also one more thing you can see here, when I'm sending this request, go to the raw and here you can see the SoapUI logs. You can see, clear this. I'm sending it. You can see here stale connection check. So first it is checking the connection and then it is trying to execute the request and it is sending a request and it is receiving the response. So got response for the country in 214 milliseconds. This second is considered to be the response time. Response time is nothing but amount of time or time taken by server to provide the response. So in future, we will be discussing more like how to validate the response time. Is there any particular content or particular value I want to validate? So these are the things you will see here. Under the HTTP log, if you see here, this is a SOAP message only, but it is transported through the HTTP protocol only. So when I send this, you can see. So this is one. So what is the content type? What is the SOAP action? So where it is communicating, what is the kind of protocol? SOAP envelope is what? SOAP header is what? SOAP body is what? All these things are displayed. And finally, it is getting the responses also. So those things will be logged. Suppose if something is wrong here, for example, say a well-formed XML is not there. It is not a well-formed XML means then it will be a error here. See here, internal server error. Why it is providing server error? There is a problem with the resource you are looking for and it cannot be displayed. So 500 internal server error is the server cannot understand what is the request you are sending. So for that, if you go to the response, you can see it. Got response, connection is checked, but response is 500 internal server. So like that, SoapUI log will be there. If you go to this HTTP log, you don't get anything because the server has not provided any valid responses over here. So now you get this because there is some response provided, so you get it. So these are the basic things which we are getting here. So these are the things which you need to be aware of. Okay, so this is what we call as SoapUI. The basic thing, very basic thing this is. Okay, so the next thing is we need to start automating it. So the next session we are going to discuss how we can automate it. Okay, so hope I till this I'm clear about what is mean by a web service, what is a WSDL, what does a WSDL contain, under the WSDL how does the XML messages will be there, under the XML messages what is the testing I have to do as a manual tester. All these things are clear, I hope. Okay, so now moving to the interview part. So first let us understand assertions. What are the assertions we have? Assertions are classified as property content assertions, script assertions, service level agreement assertions, and the last one is compliance assertions, compliance including the status assertions. These are the different types of assertion. In each and every have their own set of assertions associated to them. Okay. And the next thing is, what is a property? Properties are the one which is used for storing values and parameterization. So that is available across project level, test suite level, test case level, test step level, and global. How to access them? It is very easy. There are direct steps available for them. You are going to provide them. So the only thing you have to remember over here is the test name alone will not have those properties associated to them. Other things will have that particular. So only the test step name will not have a slash associated to them. Other things will be. And what is a property transfer? Retrieving the value from one response and passing it as an input for another request. That can be done using XPath. So here you can see. So suppose not only XPath, you can also, and another option is there. For example, I don't want to do the storing and all, man. Directly I want to pass it here means, then what you can do is you say in. So say here retrieval code, say the request suppose this is as a single step here. So instead of a test case, this is available as a particular step here itself means then directly I can pass. For example, say I am adding it here itself. Add to test case. I am adding it to the get ISO code by currency. So in that itself I am adding. So see here itself I have added. So now if you go to the retrieval ISO code, I will get that here. And to the request, I can say here. So declare the namespace and where do you want to pass it? So I want to pass it here. double slash this one. So run it. So now it should be retrieving it. Unexpected token declare namespace. So they are saying namespace is not required. So now if you run this test step, so directly it will be taking it and it will pass it here. Yeah. So here, what is the response it is getting? ISO code. What is happening here? So here, mistakenly, there are number things. So here it is retrieval, right? So now if you run this, so see here, if you go to this particular request, you have not stored it in the property or anything else. Directly you are passing country in phone code. So here it will replace. So if there are inside the same step, you don't want to do like that. If there are in different steps, that is where you have to do by creating the properties. So these are the most important things about the testing part. So first, what are what is a variable? Container to store value. Data types. What is a data type? To say the memory requirement. Under the data types, we have types. What are the data types we have? We have short, integer, long, double, string, list, etc. Loops, we have for loop, for each loop, switch cases, do while, sorry, do while is not there, while you can do it. Control statements, if else, nested if, ladder if. So these are some of the common things which we need to know. So now I'm planning to provide you a assignment. So we have done up to 5 sessions. So now this is a time where you can get some assignments. So create a test suite for Amazon project. So under the SoapUI, Amazon Web Service sample project is here. So this is the URL of that. Copy the link. So create a test suite for this particular project and add each request in different test case and add properties to them, perform property transfer and do assertions, mainly status code and XPath match, these two things. So this is the very first assignment where you are going to import the project. From the project, you are going to create a test suite and test case and test steps. Under the test step, you are going to add the properties and you are going to perform property transfer. After doing all this, add assertions to verify the status code and the XPath. Okay, so this is the first assignment you are taking here. So now we saw the basics, but these basics are not enough for us, right? We need to perform this on our actual testing. That is where we need how it can be used. So we are going to include all these groovy concepts inside our test case and say how dynamically we can validate the response and how dynamically we can pass data. All these things we are going to see on the next session. So first thing is set property. How do you set property value using Groovy script? So as I said earlier, to set the properties, you have to use here This is a command which we are going to use instead of set property value. That should be having key and value. Okay. So similarly, get property value. And what is the library to parse XML? So for JSON and all, external libraries are available. Groovy provided library is available. So here to parse, we have the library called XML holder, which is provided by the everywhere itself. That is, everywhere is nothing but SoapUI itself. What is the library we use to run WSDL component? So the WSDL text run text context is the one which we use for running it. And how to run using command line using the testrunner.bat, and it should have the following component. So this -s refers to test suite, -r refers to reports, -j refers to JUnit style reports, and then the location of your XML file. So using this, you will be able to run it through the command line. So these are the most important things which we discussed. Other than that, the basic things like how to read a list, what are the functions available in the list, everything here. So now here is where I am going to give a complete assignment for SoapUI. So here, help, go to the starter page, SoapUI sample project. So here you have the sample project. Or it is better to go with the previous project itself, the Amazon project which you created in the previous assignment, right? So now in that project, what you are going to do is remove all the properties and the property transfers. First, include a groovy step implement to verify the response first, and then construct an XML request setting value to node and run it. Then perform data driven testing over that. Once the data driven testing is completed, generate test runner and execute from command line. So this is the most important part where you cover all the topics over here. This is the most important thing which you need to do. Okay. So these are the most important things which we are going to do as a part of an assignment. So in that, if you have any doubts, you can post your comments. I will be able to answer that. Okay. So be careful. So when we are doing that, so in the earlier assignment, you would have created an Amazon project. So with the URL I provided, you would have added the properties and the property transfers. Now first remove them, and then instead of property and property transfer, include a step called groovy script. So inside the groovy script, you have to write how to retrieve the response. So already I showed you, again I am showing you, to retrieve the response, what is the piece of code we are handling? This one. So where you are getting the response, and from the response you are retrieving this, and you are parsing the XML, and from the node you are getting the value. So using that, you can verify the response. Suppose the next step is you want to create the request with the passing values. So here you are going to create a request. So what here I am doing, get property value of request. So I am getting the request. On the request, I am setting the node value to the thing and parsing the XML, and I am sending it. So then the result will be stored in the run result. So the execute.run will run the code that will generate the response. So again, you are verifying the response. Then perform data driven testing. You are not doing anything. Just on top of this, whatever you have implemented, you are just going to implement the for condition. You are going to open a workbook sheet and you are going to implement the condition for loop. That's all. So that data driven testing will be over. And finally, for execution, you are going to either launch the test runner or you are going to use the command which I have provided and you are going to execute it. So this can be also in otherwise generated as a bat file. For that, what we do is, so which is the location we have in the bin, right? So I can write it in here, cd space bin, copy this, cd space this one, and then I can copy this, save it, save as desktops, sample.bat files, save it. Now go to the desktop, just run it. It will call the test runner and it will run. So this bat file in the next part, we will also see how this can be added to the Jenkins and other stuffs. So this is how here soap testing, soap service can be tested. Okay, so prepare well for these things. So now here let us go to the interview oriented perspective. How to perform data driven in pro version using data source, and main thing you have to specify here is not only data source, also you require data source loop, because the data source loop is what which is going to say how many times you want to run, right? It may be auto included, but that is the one which is going to say how much times. So that is one part. And how to retrieve outputs to external file. For that, data sync is option. And then what are the types of reports SoapUI Pro can generate? JUnit, Allure, printable report, how to set breakpoint, because breakpoint is not directly available. You have to go to step by step execution, and there we can add breakpoints. So these are the important things about SoapUI Pro. Other things are similar to SoapUI only. Now assignment for this session. So the same Amazon web service WSDL you can take, create test suite in Pro version, add or perform data driven testing using the source as Excel and JDBC, because these two are important, and then store the written output to data sync, which is collecting the output, and then generate HTML reports and share it. And similarly, launch test runner and execute from command line. So you don't want to do anything new here as before. Once you call this particular suite launch test runner, the same command will be called here. You see here, right? This command you are going to execute on the command line. That's all you are going to do. So with this, the SoapUI Pro version related to SOAP are over. For REST also the same things comes. So in the next session, we are going to discuss about how to test a REST services. Because SOAP services, we have XMLs. REST services, it is completely different. You will not have a request XML at all. On the interview perspective, the first thing is, what is REST? REST is also a protocol, but it is a architectural style protocol. What do we mean by architectural style protocol? Means it says how a query has to be posted query. Those things. What are HTTP methods? HTTP methods are the one which says what is the operation you are going to do. There are multiple. The main things are get, post, put or patch, delete. Put or not actually. Put and patch. Put, patch, delete. REST supports what? REST can support JSON, XML, text, but SOAP will support only XMLs. Reporting in open source, you can get JUnit reporting. When we are going to the other things, you get that is related to SoapUI. So what are the REST type of testing you can do? I can test functionally, performance, security. Both all these three can be done inside the SoapUI itself. The last one is What other tools we have? So SoapUI, other than that, Postman can be used for testing REST and RESTful services. So this is a library which is provided by Java itself. So using that, you can write the code and do the testing. And about an assignment, so there is another URL where you can get samples, which is restcountries.eu. So here, if you go to see get all countries, means you have this rest to all. So if you open this, you will get all the countries in the JSON format. So you have to create a REST project for all countries in this one hyperlink, and then convert or create a test suite, add test cases, add assertions for status code and JSON count, execute the test suite, not test case, generate reports. So this is the assignment you are going to perform for this particular task. So don't worry, this is similar to SoapUI, but instead of the SoapUI WSDL, you are provided with the URI. So already I showed you, yeah, that is most thing you have to understand here also. What are URL? Uniform Resource Locator. What is URI? Uniform Resource Identifier. So what do we mean by Uniform Resource Identifier? Means this includes the endpoint, resource path, and query parameter. So combined, we say it as URI. Resource path, what is that? Resource path is used for get a resource. Query parameter to filter the data. Okay. So these are the main things you need to know about REST. Okay. Thank you everyone.